All right. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Art Tipaldi. I'm the editor of Blues Music Magazine. You can check out our new magazine with Kenny Neal on the cover at any Barnes & Noble store, or you can go to our website, bluesmusicstore.com, and check out all of our products. Well, here we are tonight at Don Odell's Legends studio, and we are thrilled tonight to have the all-star MVP, third baseman of the Cleveland Indians, Jose Ramirez. Welcome, Jose. Oops, wrong Jose Ramirez.
Exactly.
I guess I got the Major League Blues, which coincidentally enough, ladies and gentlemen, happens to be the title of Jose Ramirez's newest CD, Major League Blues, and it's a stunningly beautiful CD. Congratulations on it, Jose.
Thank you, Art.
Yeah.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
We're we're so pleased to have you here, and glad that you're here and not at Fenway Park tonight, where the other Jose Ramirez happens to be.
He's not going to be having such a great night.
No, that's correct. Good. Well, you know, we are fortunate here at Don Odell's. We always have some of the legends of the blues, but we also try to have some of the real young talents in the blues, and you are one of them. In 2020, you hit the scene with your own CD on your own label, if I'm not mistaken, produced by Anson Funderburg. And this current CD that I just held up, Major League Blues, is on the Delmark label. There is no more iconic blues label, blues and jazz label, than Delmark. They've been putting out great Chicago blues for 60 years. So my question is, how does a Jose Ramirez land there?
Man, it's been a wild ride, Art. And this really started about 7 years ago when I moved to the States, originally from Costa Rica. That's where I was born and raised. But really only things started to really happen about 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right after we competed at the IBC in Memphis.
Right, that's the International Blues Challenge that the Blues Foundation does, and we can talk about that in a bit too.
Yeah.
But
Delmark saw me there
okay.
at the finals, and then we got second place. And I got a call from them, and I said, we were at the IBC, and we just listened to your first record as well. It was BMA nominated.
Right.
If you're interested, we would like to release your second album. Wow. And we recently, last year, signed a record deal with Delmark, and that thing the president mentioned that turned me into the first ever Latino to sign a record deal with a major blues label in the States.
That's right. That's
right.
So
we are still celebrating that.
That's of course. So yeah, I mean, your rise has been pretty steady and I don't want to say meteoric, but it's been, you know, you have your CD. It was nominated for a Blues Music Award for what? Best debut?
Best debut contemporary.
Best debut contemporary
artist.
Yeah. That would have been what, 2020? 2020.
2020.
Yeah.
2021.
2021. And then of course you signed now with Delmark.
Right.
And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about Costa Rica and some of those the other influences you bring. So your first CD, you've got Anson Funderburg producing it, great Chicago blues guitarist. This CD now you're on Delmark, known for their Chicago blues. What did you learn from each experience?
Man, you know, working with Anson, first of all, I have to say, was working with one of my top 3 guitar players. Since I was a kid growing up in Costa Rica, I used to listen to Anson.
Yeah.
I used to listen to B.B. King.
Right.
And I used to listen to Jimmy Vaughn.
Okay.
Those 3 guys were my, you know, gods.
The Trinity.
Yes, the Trinity. And to land in the States years later and have my first album, my debut album, be produced by Anson Funderburg was like, I still today, after my second release on Delmark, I can't believe my first CD was, you know, produced by Anson.
Right.
And more than just having an amazing producer, I created a great friendship with him.
That's nice.
We started a great friendship, and he's more of a mentor than he was a producer. We're good friends now, and we joke and we send each other messages here and there.
Yeah.
But you know, his sound is very Texas. He's a guy from Texas.
Yeah.
He comes from that school of simplistic guitar players that can hit one note and hit the audience with that note.
Right.
Just knock him dead.
Right.
And that's the B.B. King school.
That's true.
You know?
And Jimmy Vaughn.
And Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So to be able to have my first album be produced by Anson was a complete honor.
Right.
And I can't wait to work with him again.
Nice.
We also at some point talked about, why don't you and I record something?
Cool.
Like
Very
old
nice.
school,
Yeah.
the new school.
Yeah.
He doesn't like the word old,
No.
but I said, no, I mean in a good sense of a word. So that's something we have to work or to look forward into the future at some point.
Right.
We want to do that.
Right.
I personally want to do it. He seemed interested in doing it as well.
Yeah.
And then now with Delmark, of course, that's the name of the album. It's the Major League Blues. It's
Right.
somebody coming from outside of the U.S. and being welcomed and recognized as a
Right.
part of the American blues
That's
scene
cool.
and
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
It's really an honor.
Yeah.
And I'm humbled by it.
Right.
And it's a lot of responsibility because I am the first Latino really breaching into the blues world in the
Yeah.
U.S.
Yeah.
And I hope that opens the door for more people from not just from Latin America,
No.
but from other countries
Right.
who have been doing great things in the blues world.
Right,
lately,
right,
You know.
right. Well, I know I've followed, Canadians, Europeans,
Oh, man.
people from the Far East, Japan, Australia, and of course Latin America, Central America. I was going to ask this later, but since you've opened the door, what in the Latino Central American culture can you add to the blues? To make it, to blend the two.
I recently had a very interesting conversation, about a 2-hour face-to-face conversation with Mr. Blues Iglauer from Alligator.
Yes.
And we talked about this topic. And he said, what do you think, Jose? Do you think the Latin entertainment is ready for blues? And backwards, is blues ready for the Latin
Exactly.
music? I said, I think there is now a niche for it.
Right.
Because you see Latin American music in all the other genres of music in the world.
Right.
In rock.
Yeah.
In
Yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
In
yeah.
pop.
Yeah.
You get all these guys singing reggae. Reggae from the islands are coming to the U.S. and they're even now in Hollywood movies.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there is a spot now since, the U.S. is also opening, the world is
Right.
opening up to more cultures.
Right, exactly.
And acceptance of them.
Exactly.
I think that opens a little door for Latin artists
Right.
to make a name for themselves into the blues, adding little nuances of Latin culture.
Right.
Because if you really pay attention, the way I see it is the U.S. right now, the blues musicians playing blues in the U.S., a lot are not playing just blues. They're adding other influences.
Sure.
Rock. There's a lot of rock
Oh yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jazz, blues. You get somebody like Robin Ford, Larry Carlton,
Yeah.
Kirk Fletcher,
Yeah.
Chris Kane. These guys play a lot of jazz.
Right.
They love it.
That's right.
And they give a little something new to the blues.
Right.
So why is it that maybe Latin music can have a little something into the blues to create a new path? you know?
Yeah. What would some of those Latin musical nuances be that could be added to the 1-4-5 or the shuffle or whatever? What would some of those be that you can hear in your head?
If you really pay attention to Latin music, people immediately think of salsa or even down south in South America, like Brazil
Right.
or Argentina. And when they ask me that question, I usually refer to Argentina for a reason, or Chile. They have a type of music or a genre called tango. Tango
Right.
music is popular all over the world. And tango is, to me, in my personal opinion, the Latin blues.
Okay.
It's the story.
Right.
It's my woman left me.
Yes.
I'm brokenhearted and I'm getting drunk because it makes me feel numb. That's the root of that story for Latin Americans.
Yeah.
It started in Argentina, but it spread up north to all the rest of South and Central America.
Okay.
So some of those sounds, if you pay attention to like old school tango, like Carlos Gardel music
Okay.
and that kind of stuff, slow tango, and then you listen to a minor blues from Albert Collins or B.B. King's Blues Boy tune,
Sure.
you hear it.
You do.
So if the legends like B.B. King and Albert Collins or T-Bone Walker
Right.
were playing some of that already back in the late 50s and early 60s, there is something. There is a similarity.
Right.
I don't think nobody's ever breached it concretely yet.
Yeah.
but there is a sound.
Right.
And that sound is, you can call it blues. In different, with different backgrounds and different cultures.
Right.
But there is something that needs to be, point A needs to be tied to point B at some point.
Right.
And that's what we try to do with my band. You'll probably hear a little bit of that tonight in the performance.
Yeah.
And
you've got that one great song, "Are We So Different?"
Are we really different?
Are we really different? And I was just listening to it today as I was already thinking about asking you that question. And I'm going, well, damn, here's the answer, because he's done it. And the first thought that hits my mind is Carlos Santana, and I'm going, well, of course, that's the guy who has put some Latin influences into blues, or had people thinking, What's the audience's response to something like that? What do you see?
The more we get to tour the U.S., we've done a few tours this year, and we try to do 2 or 3 tours in the U.S., and we try to go to Europe twice a year as well. The more we introduce those Latin nuances into blues, the more people ask questions about it after the show. Because they're like, man, we love when you guys play that Chicago, like low down, dirty blues. But that last song you guys did tonight is like a ballad, but it almost sounds like, I don't want to say Carlos Santana,
right?
Because it doesn't sound like Carlos Santana, but it's something about it. It's a tango. What is it?
Right.
It's like, well, I think it's something that I do that it's inevitable.
Right.
It just comes out.
Yes.
Because when I was a kid,
that's
I
culture.
I grew up listening to what my family used to listen to on the radio, but I also grew up listening to a lot of soul music and blues.
Okay, and that was another question. It's like, how does a kid from Costa Rica find American blues?
That's it. That's where it all started. You know, I was, I think, 8 years old, and I wanted to pick up a guitar to learn how to play the guitar. My dad said, hold on. If you're real serious about picking up that guitar, you have to understand that music, it all comes from blues.
Really?
And I was like, what's that? And my dad was a wise man when it came to music, man. And he said, jazz, rock and roll, funk, soul, R&B, hip hop, call it whatever you want. It all comes from the same root.
Right.
And it's called blues.
Wow.
And this is what you check out. And he started the VHS. And he put a cassette in there. It was a B.B. King concert. Blues Summit, live at B.B. King's.
Oh, I know that.
In
I
Memphis,
got it.
Beale Street, 1995 show. And I was just like, oh my God, Dad, that's amazing. That's
powerful.
What I want to do when I grow up. He's like, well, if you're real serious about that, you have to put the guitar down and listen to these guys for weeks and weeks and months. Just listen. Listen, it has to be in your DNA. And you were not born there, so it's going to be harder for you. So you got to listen more.
Right.
And work harder than guys in the States. Because you have to make a name for yourself and prove to the world that you have what it takes to be a part of that scene.
Wow.
So I paid close attention to his advice, and I listened to a lot of blues, and I really wanted to pick up that guitar, and he wouldn't let me. He locked it. He locked it down for me. And after months, I think, several weeks, he said, okay, bring the guitar out, and I'll try to play or emulate what you're hearing on those records. And that's how it started for me. He was right. He was the mother of all other genres.
Sure.
And parallel to that, my parents also owned a bar in Costa Rica. And the specialty of the bar was playing American oldies music. Especially like Motown, like soul music. You know, Motown, Stax. Philly sound. So I grew up listening to Ray Charles a lot, Teddy Pendergrass, Al Green, lots of soul. So I was listening to great soul singers the whole time, great blues guitar players, and salsa music.
Right.
Or tango, or, Latin music. So that all kind of came together in a big mess. That's what we do now.
That's right. Well, the learning curve for you then, was it off records? Were you, I always like to ask guys like young guitar players, are you listening to records and playing them back? And
all the time. You have to understand, Costa Rica, there was no blues whatsoever. No blues bands to go see or learn from. No blues festivals. No blues societies. No guitar players that could teach me 1-4-5. Or somebody who sit down with me like, hey, this is Pride and Joy by Stevie Ray. And this is how no. So it was all the videos that I could get, the CDs that my dad could download for me. illegally from LimeWire or Napster.
Napster, yeah.
LimeWire or
yeah.
all those things.
Right.
And that was where my teachers.
Right.
And
Wow.
that's something I like to tell the audience or during our live shows. My first teacher guitar teacher was B.B. King.
Wow.
And guess what? That same teacher is still today my teacher.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
hasn't stopped. I haven't stopped taking classes from that
That's
gentleman.
very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Did you find, as you're watching videos, on it wasn't YouTube back then, you'd buy a cassette or whatever.
Yeah.
Did you find, as you watched some of these guys, that the tunings they were using was throwing you for a loop?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, how's he doing that and getting that sound?
Yes. The tuning, and you know what? A guy that I like to mention is, once I nailed down the 145,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is it. And then my dad played a record by John Lee Hooker record.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's not 145. Let me play that again. And my dad would be like, yeah, it's similar. No, it's not that.
Yeah,
It's- He's going to the 4 whenever he wants to go to the 4.
That's right.
So that's not, what is that? And how am I going to ever play a song by John Lee Hooker? It's
Yeah.
impossible. Yeah. And it's part of the culture. All those guys had their way
Yes.
of playing the blues.
Yes.
And I like to believe that my band is now trying to do that
cool.
too.
Sure.
You know?
And for anybody listening who's a guitar player or wants to study the blues, you have to study every one of those people. You have to see what makes John Lee Hooker, and then Albert Collins, and there's Albert King, and who's this Lightning Hopkins guy, and there's Big Bill Brunzi, and each one of them is different. And you have to learn a United Nations of languages.
It's a lot of vocabulary.
It is.
A lot of vocabulary, and they all sounded different because they all came from a different background.
Yep. Yeah.
So now if we add all those guys after the Big Bill Brunzis and the Robert Johnsons and the Son Houses that came after them, everybody's got a different story.
Exactly.
And a different sound.
Sure. So what was the first live blues experience you saw?
Ooh. You know what? I visited the U.S. when I was a teenager. I must have been 16, 17. And one of my cousins lives in Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
So I visited him for a while, and he knew that I liked blues and guitars. And he said, well, I don't know a lot about blues. I just live here. He's Costa Rican. His wife's American. So he had been living there for a few years. He said, but I'm sure downtown Dallas, there are a few clubs that say blues out, live blues. So we can go check it out.
Yeah.
And he took me to this place on a Saturday night called The Bone in Dallas.
Right.
And a guy by the name of Hash Brown was hosting
I know
a blues
Hash Brown.
jam.
Yeah.
And Brian, and we went in, and my cousin, I didn't speak the same English I speak with you here today.
Yeah.
So my cousin had to translate for me and told Hash Brown that I wanted to play, that I came from Costa Rica and I wanted to cut my teeth. You know? And Hash Brown said, well, he's just a blues jam. Anybody can play. But if he's good, he can stay up and play a couple more songs. But if we don't like what we hear, he has to go.
Yeah.
Right? And my cousin told me that. I was like a little frightened. It's like, what are we going to do here?
Yeah.
He calls me up, and we did one song, and then we did 2 and 3 and 4, and I wound up staying the whole second set.
Wow.
Because I knew all the songs he was calling out. And he was like, how come a guy from Costa Rica knows a song by T-Bone Walker that is like a side B, not a side A?
That's right.
It's not Stormy Monday.
That's right.
It's something, it's Glamour Girl.
Glamour Girl.
So how does he know that? I was like, well, I've been studying. I've been doing my homework.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. That was my first exposure to live blues in America. It's just a little juke joint that doesn't even exist anymore in Dallas. And from there, and I moved here 7 years ago.
Right.
And man, I've been honored not just to see, but to also share bills and festivals with some of my legends.
Yeah.
So that's really inspiring. This coming November, I'm going to be playing a big festival in Denmark.
Okay.
Along with Sugar Ray Rayford and Chris
I know the
King.
festival well.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So it's guys that I study. You know?
When you got on stage those early days, what did you learn being on stage that you didn't learn from the records?
It's a different beast. Once you get on stage, you're like, well, where's the album?
Yeah.
And why is that bass player not playing this song the same way the bass player plays it on the album?
Okay.
So a lot of, and that's something I tell people too. It's like, I wish I had been born in this country.
Yeah.
Because then that would have given me the chance to start even earlier. Because if you think about the Kenny Wayne Shepherds and the Joe Bonamasas and the John Mayers and all those guys, they were going to these blues clubs.
Right.
Not at 16. They were going to these blues clubs at 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And just mesmerized by the energy that was coming off the stage. So I wish I had that same opportunity or access to that, accessibility to it. So yeah, it's completely different. You learn the albums, you learn the shapes, you learn the forms.
Right.
But the real soul of it, you can just see it live.
Right.
You know, what's happening. Because, man, a guy, I would quote one of my favorite guitar players, he was Brian Lee from New Orleans. He was blind, but he had one of the most captivating personas on stage. And he was just a showman, you know, with the audience.
Yeah, yeah.
You couldn't even tell this guy was blind.
Right, right.
You know, he had such a connection with the audience.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I see that in guys, I just mentioned Sugar Ray Rayford.
Right, yeah.
His persona on stage,
Yeah.
his engagement with the audience.
Yes.
That's something that I think we've been losing a lot, personally, in the blues world. Because there's a lot of great guitar shredders out there.
Yes.
But where is the show?
Yeah.
We want to send the audience home with an idea that they'll remember the next day.
Yeah.
You know, because great guitar players, we have a lot of those. But people walk out that door after the show.
Right.
They won't go home mumbling the guitar solo.
No.
They want a story. They want a song and something, more importantly, something they can relate to in their personal lives. You know?
Exactly, yeah.
So-
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I was going to say about this CD. And your other CD is, this is not a guitar blasting CD. This has got nuances. It's got beautiful arrangements, great instrumentation, that you can hear the words. And this is not a, hi, I'm Jose Ramirez, and let me just show you all the things I can do on the fretboard, you know, which is refreshing. Believe me, somebody who gets a lot of CDs, this is very refreshing. Yeah. Talk a little bit about, again, as you talked about the show, the song, the story.
Right.
Your CDs are pretty heavily filled with originals.
Yes.
Talk to me. You know, people always said to me, the first album, when you write your first album, it's taken you your whole life to write. But your second album takes you a year.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit about the importance of originals and the difference between the first and second CD?
Yeah. You know, man, somebody asked me that similar question last year. We were touring in Germany. And somebody said that. Somebody actually in Germany called me a late bloomer when it comes to original music or albums, because he said, well, you're releasing your first album at 32 years old.
Yeah.
You would be what I call a late bloomer.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if I'm being too blunt, he said. And I said, no, I understand your culture is very blunt and direct, straightforward. But I said the same reasoning and story was, I wasn't born in the States. I didn't have the access that the American kids have to the blues. So it took me a longer study process and a longer train of thought to get to where I am now, and I feel ready and confident enough to write my own song.
Sure.
And contact a Anson Thunderbird.
Right.
Or be contacted by Delmark. Because now I feel, okay, I feel confident enough to put my stories into songs.
Right.
And have them be judged by people from the industry. So it's been a longer process. And yes, original material, of course, I mean, it's stories. It's personal stories, and when you get to play them live, and you see how some people in the audience are touched or moved to tears sometimes, it's like, man, now I understand why I do this. You know, it's,
When, you know, I've known your name from being a sideman in some Florida bands. Is that correct?
One band
that I knew your name as a sideman in it. What was it that made you want to step out, however, to be the man?
You know, being that sideman for that band, the main singer sometimes would have issues, personal issues, and wouldn't show up to the shows. But the band, we were already there, set up.
Right.
So the band would be like, well, we're still getting paid by the club owner. Somebody's got to sing. Jose, do you know any of the songs? I was like, well, I do, but I never wanted to. You know, I'm just a guitar player.
Right.
Well, somebody needs to sing.
Right.
So I had to do that 3 or 4 times. And after the third or fourth times, the rhythm section told me, like the guys, the bass player and drummer were like, Jose, you should start your own project.
Really? Yeah.
And that happened also before I even moved to the States.
Mm-hmm.
My last year in Costa Rica, I was trying to promote the blues
Right.
in Costa Rica, which was difficult. I tried it for 10 years, and there wasn't much I could do. But one of the biggest things I was able to accomplish was to promote a blues festival in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And the headliner was Debbie Davies, you know?
Yeah.
And Debbie came down, and my band backed her up. So we had to learn her whole repertoire and great music she plays, beautiful songs. And when we played those shows with her, she asked me, she said, Jose, have you ever considered the possibility of moving to the States? And doing this, you're doing all this hard work in Costa Rica, this heavy lifting.
Yeah.
If you did half of what you're doing here in the States, you would be huge.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
But do you think there's room for me? He's like, you got a story, man.
Wow.
You got a story. And
Yeah.
this blues is a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's all it takes. And your talent, of course, and
Right.
hard work. You should definitely try it. And then I talked to my parents, and they're like, well, I'm an only child.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, we support you. We support your dream. We cannot financially back you
Right.
on this endeavor. But, hey, we support you. Go ahead, son.
Yeah.
Sold everything I owned. Sold my car.
Wow.
Everything I owned. Suitcase, guitar in my back. Moved here. Didn't know how it was going to turn out.
Right.
And here we are.
Very cool. That's a great success story. And I was going to talk to you, but we're running out of time, about advice to young musicians who want to follow the path. You just gave it right there. You just gave it right there.
Just do it.
Do it. Be original. Tell your own stories. Connect.
Don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid. Very nice. Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, this was Jose Ramirez. He will be performing here at Don Odell's tonight. Thank you.